You guys can hear us.
Oh, Matt and Mel's. What a duo.
Got you on.
In the sunshine there.
Bit of a delay.
Yeah, Millie normally sits. That's what the chair's for. She normally sits. Villa Park plays host tonight to the two teams joined on 59 points in the Premier League. The Reds arrive this evening knowing a win will seal Champions League football for next season. To do that, they need maybe an improved performance on what we saw last weekend. Tonight, it is a battle against a Villa side who have their own top table ambitions, but the home side do have two bites of the cherry to try and get there. Will they maybe have one eye on their Europa League final that is just around the corner? It is the penultimate game for us this evening and the final away trip for a couple of Reds legends as well. It's Aston Villa versus Liverpool. Yeah, welcome along to tonight's Match Day Live. Gary Gillespie and Tash Dowie are with me here in the studio to look ahead to the game. Lots to come from them very shortly. First, though, we can head over to Villa Park for the first time this evening. Standing by is Neil Mellor, but first, Matt Smith can confirm this evening's team news. Matt.
Thank you very much, Becky. Yes, welcome to the warm sunshine at the moment of the West Midlands. And as you rightly point out, Neil Mellor alongside me. Let you without doubt, though, and without hesitation, find out who's playing for Liverpool tonight, because, again, it is, I think, an injury-hit team and squad. The Liverpool team, then, the starting 11 in number order: Mamardashvili, Joe Gomez, Virgil van Dijk, Konate and Kirkes, Szoboszlai, McAllister, Jones, Gakpo, Gravenberch and Ngomoa. And on the bench for Liverpool tonight, Woodman, Wirtz, Salah, Chiesa, Robertson, Nioni, McConnell, Njai and Wright. We understand that Alexander Isak and Jeremy Frimpong have not been fit enough to travel with the squad here this evening. Neil, that's obviously a blow, and it curtails further Arne Slot's options tonight.
Unexpected, yeah. We weren't sure what the team news would be. We were hoping there'd be good news, you know, certainly with players returning. We've just seen Mo Salah on the pitch, on the bench. That's good news. Wirtz not ready to start on the bench. We wondered maybe he might start. So again, a bit of a blow that those two players aren't ready to start. Isak, you know, that's come from nowhere. We thought he might be ready to start, so he's not involved, which is another blow. Frimpong started right wing last week, so another player. So you start thinking Ekitike's out injured. Yeah. There's no Alisson, there's no recognised right back in terms of Conor Bradley. So with all those players missing, it makes coming here a lot harder. This is a tough game. The Aston Villa away is always a tough game. They want to get Champions League football before their final. We know that a point, 3 points should be enough to get Champions League football. It's harder with all those players missing. I think with the lineup, you're thinking, what will the front three be? Obviously, a big night for Rio Ngomoa, his first ever Premier League away start, well deserved. You know, I think he's been doing very well. Gakpo will be down the middle. Yeah. Who's out on the right hand side? Will it be Curtis Jones? Probably, but maybe Szoboszlai might be an option. Yeah. Between the pair of them, they might change at various times. Obviously, Joe Gomez will come back in at right fullback. So from last weekend's game against Chelsea, it's actually only one change. Yes. Frimpong being the only player coming out, but a big blow because we came here with the hope that maybe a few players might be coming back into the starting lineup, but to see all those players missing, it will make it a little bit tougher. And Liverpool have still got work to do, to secure Champions League football. Well, absolutely, a point or three wouldn't half help in that regard. In fact, three would get them over the line. One might well be enough, given who the teams behind them, particularly Bournemouth, have got to play in the week to come. But it is just the one change, as you say, but it's as much about players playing in different parts of the pitch. Curtis Jones springs to mind. Yeah, absolutely. That team's still strong enough to come here and get the result. Yeah, you know, make no mistake about it. And yeah, people will look at the bench and think there's a few young players, but there's also players who can come off the bench and make a difference. Salah, how long can Salah play? We expect he'll be on the pitch. Wirtz the same, Andy Robertson. So there are reinforcements there, but with so many key players missing, it's definitely a blow. But the players have the quality. Curtis Jones has done a good job at right fullback. We'll have to play a little bit higher up, which will suit him. You know, that will certainly suit him to get into areas of the pitch, knowing that there is defensive security behind him. And that back four has started many a Premier League game before. So it's not a case of untried, untested players in there. And it'll just be a question to see how many changes Aston Villa will make. Yes, and we'll get to that in due course, because obviously, as Becky rightly pointed out, they've got a Europa League final in midweek to think about. That may well affect their team news. We'll give you that shortly. But on Liverpool, I wonder whether Arne Slot will be tempted to tweak a little bit
the shape of the team? Would he think of some version of a 4-4-2 even to strengthen that midfield with no natural right winger or right forward?
Possibly, yeah, possibly. I think naturally you look at Rio Engamoa and say that he is a wide player. I would expect not to see him in a more central position. You could put maybe Gakpo on the right hand side, Rio on the left hand side, and maybe Curtis and Soboslai as the furthest forward, sort of two false nines. That's definitely going to be a possibility. And there are options to be flexible with the lineup. But I just think with Rio Engamoa, the excitement he brings and an outlet for Liverpool, he is that genuine wide player who can really create problems for this Aston Villa team. But yeah, I'd be surprised if it wasn't more of a 4-3-3 formation, with maybe Curtis being slightly more inside than out on the right hand side.
He's played all over Curtis Jones in recent weeks, but then he's getting starts, which is, I'm sure, what he wants. It's a microcosm in a way of the frustrations of the whole season for Slot and the club, isn't it? That they keep having to find new solutions to new problems.
Yeah, and often teams will always have injuries. You know, that will never change in football. It's the amount of injuries which is not ideal, and certainly when things aren't finished as yet, we want to make sure we get over the line to secure Champions League football for next season. So there are a number of key players. Listen, challenges will always happen for the team, and it's about stepping up, and these lads have got an opportunity to step up tonight and put in a decent performance, get a good result, knowing that they do have the qualities to create problems for Aston Villa tonight.
Yeah, and as you rightly point out, there is some strength and some experience on that bench. We knew from yesterday that Mo Salah couldn't probably start tonight's game, but he is available off the bench. Florian Wirtz similarly was in doubt because of the problems with his stomach and the antibiotics he's been having to take. But he's on the bench, so if they're still in the game, fingers crossed that's the case with 20-25 minutes to go, maybe they can change the outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it was a case of, when is Salah going to be available? We knew that it would be at some point. It's now. So that's really good news. And it's a case of, will it be 20 minutes? Will it be 30 minutes? Maybe the manager might be tempted to get him on slightly earlier, depending on how the game's going and how we're looking in attack. But also Wirtz as well. I don't really know how problematic it's been, how much he's trained. Obviously, he's had a decent season for game time already, so missing a few days of training isn't too bad. And Andy Robertson as well, with good energy down the left hand side. There are options. I expect it to be a close game. You know, with Villa, what's around the corner for them? They'll certainly be competitive. The last home game here, of course, at Villa Park for the season. So yeah, it's a game they're looking forward to end their away form this season, which hasn't been great for Liverpool, we know. But with something left to play for, the lads can finish the job off tonight.
Thanks for the moment, Neil. And we understand 3 changes for Aston Villa, so they haven't rotated as heavily as maybe 1 or 2 Liverpool fans, ourselves included, were hoping. We'll give you all the detail on that and get Neil's thoughts on their starting 11 when you come back to us in a wee while, Becky.
A big thanks to the lads on what looks to be a beautiful evening down in the Midlands. Good evening to both of you. Treat to Friday night football. Not often we get that, Gary. Played 2 already this season. Won them both. Maybe that's an omen for tonight. Who knows?
Well, let's hope so. Let's keep our fingers crossed.
A lot on the line tonight.
I mean, both clubs have got like big stakes in this game, haven't they? Obviously, they qualify for Europe. You just wonder that if Aston Villa have got one eye on, obviously, that final next week against Freiburg. And let's hope that's what they have. Just distract them ever so slightly. I mean, I think we've got a decent record against Aston Villa. There's always seems to be goals in this game. I think we've drawn the last 2 away games, both like 2-2 and 3-3. So I expect a good contest tonight, and I think there should be quite a few goals. But Liverpool, you know, I mean, it is kind of a microcosm of like how the season's gone with the injuries, and not injuries that you kind of expect. They've come a little bit unexpected as well, and you know, like obviously Alexander-Arnold, which has been a massive blow throughout the course of the season, and it kind of just typifies it again. He's missing tonight. Wirtz has obviously had his problems with his stomach. But as a side that I think maybe a little bit more balanced, I think with Joe Gomez in the side at right full back. I always like to see Joe Gomez in the side. I think he never really lets us down, other than the fact that, you know, he might pick up injuries. But I think we've seen a cameo appearance from him coming on a substitute on a couple of occasions, and he's done exceptionally well. I don't think that'll be a problem. And what it does do, it gives a licence for Curtis Jones maybe to play a little bit further, higher up the pitch, which will suit him. The big question is obviously who plays through the middle. Was it Gakpo and like Engamo on the left-hand side, and maybe Soboslai on the right? Who knows?
We shall go into the team a little bit more in depth in a moment, but first let's have a look at exactly what is on the line this evening. Here is the top of the Premier Premier League table as things stand, Tash. And it is obviously big for both teams because 3 points for either confirms Champions League football. On the other hand, which is obviously what we don't want, defeat ramps up the pressure for that final day. Bournemouth, Brighton still in the hunt. That is exactly the scenario Liverpool really have to avoid.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they want to get the job done tonight, to be honest. I think when you look at the last game of the season, Villa have a tough run in, City away, I believe, and obviously the final as well, which is going to be huge for them. So I really think that for Liverpool now, they have to view this as a cup final, get the job done and then enjoy the last game of the season. It's not going to be easy because Villa, they've fielded a really strong team tonight as well, and they're a tough opponent. But yeah, I think the boys have to give everything they possibly can.
There is a scenario where Champions League places can go to sixth if Villa do win that Europa League final, Gary, and then finish fifth. But that's not something that Liverpool want to be involved in. They want to get it sewn up, as Tash says, this evening.
No, I think from a player's point of view, going into a game like this, you kind of know what's expected of you and like what the outcome is. 3 points qualifies you for European football or the Champions League football next season, and that's only the focus that you have to have. You can't rely on other teams like around about you and like what they do. Concentrate on what you can affect, and certainly that game is tonight, and hopefully Liverpool can show something that maybe we haven't seen on a regular enough basis, especially away from home this season. But like, they've got more than the capability of doing it.
As Matt mentioned, maybe we anticipated Villa would have one or both eyes on that Europa League final, Tash, and heavily rotate. That hasn't been the case. It is only the 3 changes. He'll bring the team in full very shortly, but maybe he's obviously taken this game extremely seriously and has a similar mindset to Liverpool as he wants it sewn up as well for Aston Villa. And it's also momentum, isn't it, for them 100%. To go into Wednesday night?
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. It's momentum, you know, players playing together, partnerships, building that positive morale leading into probably one of the biggest games that these players have ever played in, you know, the final in 5 days' time. And I think that's really important. You know, you don't want to make too many changes. And I think if players are fit at this time of the season, they want to be playing games. So I'm not really surprised, to be honest, to see that he hasn't made too many changes.
Players, of course, will be playing for their place in that final as well, Gary, which is a huge consideration too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the one thing that you would say, they certainly won't want to get injured and miss it. I think you look at Ben White at Arsenal, like his season's over. He's going to miss the Champions League final and obviously going to miss the World Cup as well, had he gone. But no, I think the Villa players will be going into this game thinking that this is a great opportunity for them to climb above Liverpool. And it's been a topsy-turvy season for them as well. I think when you look at both Villa and Liverpool, both teams have had an opportunity really to pull away from either of them, and we haven't been able to do that. Villa haven't been able to do that with Liverpool, and Liverpool haven't been able to do that with Villa. So it really it boils down to this kind of game, like a head-to-head, and who comes out on top certainly will qualify for the Champions League.
Let's get into that Liverpool team then. Gary gave some brief thoughts. Yep. Tash, what is your instant reaction? It's fair to say the boss is having to deal with a depleted squad at the moment.
I mean, straight away as a number 9, you know, I always focus on that role, and it's a position that I do think we've struggled with this season. I think, you know, Ekitike was flying, and then to have that injury with the Achilles, and then really sad to see again that Isak's not involved. I think it's just a season that he wants to be over, and hopefully he can have a solid pre-season. Look, with what we've got today, I mean, Gakpo can absolutely do a role in that position. Is it his best position? I don't think so. I think he is stronger out wide, cutting in. You know, there's versatility, but I also feel like we've played that false 9. It does worry me a little bit because when I look at then Villa's lineup, they do have a proper out-and-out prolific goal scorer. And I just think for me, yes, we've got creative players in there, but then when it really looks to put the ball in the back of the net, I think we struggle a little bit, to be honest. But that's going to be a big night for the likes of Rio to try and create.
Let's speak about Rio because he teed up Ryan Gravenberch very nicely for a beautiful goal against Chelsea, which was kind of lost in maybe the disappointment of the result, Gary. But he will see these final few games this season. He's getting those opportunities to start at the moment, which obviously he hasn't been afforded throughout the campaign. So he will be obviously wanting to make the most of them.
Well, he'll be buoyant coming into this game. I noticed he picked up some award in midweek as well, didn't he?
Yeah.
Like Academy Player of the season or something like that. So this is a big opportunity for him, like to show like everybody what he can do or at this level. And I think Liverpool have kind of managed them pretty well. I mean, obviously burst onto the scene with that goal against Newcastle. And I think from a youngster's point of view, sometimes you can get thrown in a little bit too early, but he's certainly got all the tricks and all the ability and I think he seems to be a level-headed young man to like keep his feet on the ground, and big things are expected of him, but you don't want to put like too much burden on him just at an early age, and let him mature gradually. And the best is yet to come from Rio Engamoa. He's only like 17 years of age, but like what we see already is exciting. I think you see like the fans at the weekend upset that he's getting taken off, because he's one of these players that like gets you on your feet. He's exciting. He like beats people. He runs at people, and he commits people, and fans love to see that. But from a manager's point or a coach's point of view, and from the young man his own point of view, you can't push them too quickly. I think it's a very dangerous thing to do that. It's a thin balance between pushing them like too far and just like trying to mature them in the right way. And I think the club have handled it pretty well. I think we'll see a lot more of Rio Engamoa next season. Yeah,
it's very understandable the fans want to see more of him, Tash, because he is just mesmerising to watch. Obviously, in the heat of the moment, they probably don't see what Arne Slot later clarified, that Rio had maybe felt his muscles a little bit, and he doesn't turn 18 until August, so they have to, as Gary says, be so careful to look after him, because we've seen players his age before get too many minutes and then they burn out. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think being a fan and being at the games this season, I think that's the positive thing about Rio, is every time he gets the ball, he makes something happen. And I think that the fans at Anfield don't ask for a lot. First and foremost, they ask for hard work, and then actually, trying to be positive. And he does that every single time he plays. I think, Gary says, you can hear them singing his name and chanting his name. And like you said, it is a fine balance. He wants to play more. Absolutely, he'll want to play more. He'll want to have an impact, especially when the team are struggling so much. I think then as a player, you automatically want to help the team, and he can absolutely do that. But I think longevity, I think it's spot on with regards to kind of that balance. But he's got a bright future. I really hope he stays within the club and stays here, and we keep him, because the more successful he becomes, I'm sure there'll be other big clubs as well wanting to try and sign him. If we are struggling for goals as the game goes on, eyes will obviously be drawn to Mo Salah on the bench in what is his final away appearance for Liverpool. Gary, the boss intimated in the press conference, I think his phrase was maybe a few minutes, which implies we might not see him for too long, but who knows, maybe he's playing it down a touch.
Well, it'll be interesting to see. I think he'll get game time. I think without any shadow of a doubt, I think we will see him in some capacity. I mean, the big send-off is obviously the home game against Brentford, isn't it? So I don't think you want to jeopardise that in any way. If he's he obviously is fit. He's a fit lad. And again, going into this game against Aston Villa, you look at his stats and you just think, you want him in the side really. But in saying that, you've got to be careful as well. So, yeah, I mean, it's been a fantastic spell for him at the football club. The football club have certainly enjoyed him, and the fans have certainly enjoyed him. And let's give him a good send off at Brentford. Let's not worry too much about this game. Yeah, he's got a good record against Aston Villa as well. Tash, been involved in 10 goals, and 5 assists, so 15 goal involvements. But I feel like we could probably pick out any Premier League team and give similar stats for Mo Salah, because he's so phenomenal at what he does. But you as a striker, I imagine watching him over these past almost a decade that he's been with the club, how much will you miss him? Massively. I actually want to say goodbye to him and thank him, to be honest, personally, because I think what he's done for the club, I don't think will ever happen again. And I was an out-and-out number 9 through the middle, and I think it's crazy to think that Mo isn't even that. Yes, they call them forwards now, but really he was a wide player. So the numbers that he's produced year on year, and I just think with regards to the mentality side is the thing that's impressed me more than ever. And I think maybe at times this season we've lacked that, and I think at times that is a concern maybe moving forward when you look at those players like your Mo's, your Mane's, your Henderson's, your Milner's, those real kind
kind of leaders that kind of lead the way. I think that's a big then responsibility, and he's kind of hinted at that, hasn't he, Mo, with regards to his interviews of who is going to be that next big leader. Is it going to be a Zoboslai to keep the standards? Because you don't realise how important it is to have those type of leaders, and especially at this type of football club. But yeah, what a player. Pleasure to watch. Feel very lucky.
We will miss him hugely. Hopefully we see a little bit of Mo Salah tonight. For now, we're going to cross back over to Matt and to Neil and get a full rundown of the Aston Villa starting 11. Matt. I think we're having a few technical difficulties. Fingers crossed we can head over to Aston Villa very shortly and get the starting 11. In fact, I think he's ready. Here's Matt Smith.
Pretty strong team from Unai Emery, given that they've got this Europa League final in 4 or 5 days' time against Freiburg. Emi Martinez in goal. At the back, Matty Cash, Pau Torres and Ezri Konsa and Lucas Dean. That makes up their defence. Victor Lindelof, who's been playing as a sitting midfielder, really does that job again, the Swede, alongside Yuri Tielemans. Buendia is back into the team as a starter, alongside John McGinn, of course, and Morgan Rogers, and Ollie Watkins leads the side. So 3 changes from that 2-2 draw against Burnley. It's Maatsen and Mings, who doesn't make the bench, who miss out, along with Ross Barkley. So if you were a Liverpool fan hoping that the changes for Liverpool would be matched by the changes from an Aston Villa point of view, not so, Neil.
They have made their intentions pretty clear to me. They want to get the job done tonight. Yes, they have 3 opportunities to get into the Champions League. This is the first opportunity. They know a victory will guarantee that place. They have the Europa League final, which again will guarantee it, and the last game against City. I was hoping they might make a few changes, rest a couple of players. That is the strongest team I think Villa could have played. They've made the 3 changes. You're looking at the starting lineup and saying, yeah, that's the strongest back 4, strongest midfield, and strongest attack. So intention's clear from Unai Emery. He's saying to the players, get it done. Get it done tonight, so that you're not going into that game on Wednesday in the Europa League final still having to try and win that to qualify.
And dare I say, perhaps they sensed that Liverpool couldn't and wouldn't be at their strongest unless they're going slightly for the jugular. They haven't been super consistent this season, Villa, but they are better than they've been on the road at here. This is still a bit of a fortress.
I think it was earlier on this season. I think when you're looking at Aston Villa at the moment, they've been having a stumble. What is it, 1 win in the last 5 games? Yeah. They've been unconvincing lately. I think at one stage during the season, I think sort of before Christmas time, sort of October, November, this was a horrible place to come to. I think they won 8 games in a row. Everyone that was coming here getting beat. City got turned over here, and you're thinking, cool, don't want to be going there now. Since then, they've only won 3 of the next 8 games. So a few sides like your Evertons, your Brentfords have been winning here, which gives you hope that it isn't quite as a fortress as it was. But it's the last home game of the season. It's the last home game of the season.
Before European final.
Yeah, and we're talking about the team news there, and it's really strong. We've been in and around the ground. All I've seen people talking about is the Europa League final, Freiburg. I'm seeing scarves being sold, half-an-hour scarves. I'm thinking, you've got to think about this game. So as much as we're talking about they're strong, and that's the side I would expect to start the Europa League final, where are their heads? Are they tuned into playing Liverpool tonight, or are some of them thinking, I need to get 20 tickets for my family next week? So all of a sudden, the mental side of things, how focused are they? Yes, top players. But that'll be the big test for them tonight. And Unai Emery has gone for it by naming such a strong side.
Yeah, and he's not, I would suggest, the kind of manager in my dealings with him that would allow any complacency or thoughts of Wednesday to creep in. But it does. As a player, you can't help but get a little bit ahead of yourself, particularly if they get a good start here. They could find it difficult to balance tonight and Wednesday, couldn't they?
I hope so. Yeah, I think that's the hope for us. I think it's human nature. It's natural to be thinking what lies ahead, because this isn't something that Aston Villa have been used to. You know, for Liverpool, we're used to finals. People are talking about it's the first trophy they can win in 30 years. The fans are talking about it. They're excited. It's only natural that the players will be well aware of that. But they'll also be looking forward to this game tonight. It's against Liverpool. They know it's a rival. They know the importance, because they slipped up at the weekend. Everybody expected, myself included, they'll go to Burnley and they'll win that game comfortably. They struggled. They got a 2-2 draw, which gives us the upper hand in terms of the league table, knowing that a draw might be enough for them, but they don't want to take that risk, and they'll want to get the job done tonight. And the fans will help them. They really will tonight.
And they, of course, their last game is against Manchester City next weekend. So I guess all things being equal, can't expect to necessarily get too much from that. So again, they'll want to get over the line if they can here. Yeah, I think, as we said earlier, from a Liverpool point of view, against that strong a Villa team, stay in it, be hard to play against, and have a look at what you can do off the bench towards the end if you can.
Yeah, I think it'll be uncomfortable at times tonight. You know, I think the crowd will really get behind the team and make it difficult for our players. You're looking at the danger men, obviously Buendia. I look at the team and think, how much pace is there out wide? You know, John McGinn and Buendia, who I think might be the wider players. So I'm thinking, not quite the pace there. Watkins will offer the movement in behind. Rodgers has had a decent season in spells. You know, I thought he was one of the best players in the league at one stage. He's dipped off a little bit. He's played a lot of football. He has played a lot of football. He's played over 60 games this season. That's club and country. That is a lot of football. But you're now at this stage of the season where it matters. And as players, you want to be playing in these big games. There's a lot at stake for Liverpool. There's a lot at stake for Aston Villa. And they've also got the big game round the corner. And it's up to the big players. We're talking about Watkins. We're talking about Rodgers. Obviously, McGinn as an experienced player. Will they step up and know that they can go into that final having done what they needed to tonight, rather than put more pressure on themselves going into the final in 4 or 5 days' time?
Thank you, Neil, again for the moment. Of course, a point apiece might serve both clubs in terms of those Champions League ambitions, with Bournemouth 4 behind and playing City in the midweek to come. But, of course, football doesn't work like that. Both teams here, I'm sure, starting with the intention of taking all 3 and guaranteeing Champions League football.
OK, thanks, lads. Before we get into the Aston Villa team, let's hear now from Unai Emery, who is proud that his side is sitting on the same points as Liverpool and are within touching distance of securing Champions League football for next season.
To finish the season in the top 5 is really something fantastic. And tomorrow we are playing one team, favorite and contender at the beginning to be clearly, because last year they won the Premier League, to be there, even of course fighting with Arsenal and Manchester City at the beginning, and we are with the same point like then. Of course, it's something fantastic and something we must be so proud of it. And now is how we can test ourselves playing against them, and how we are testing with them, because of course Liverpool, they have a fantastic coach, fantastic players. Maybe they are not being consistent this year like they were last year, but they're still being a fantastic team and players and coach, and it's Liverpool. And of course to play tomorrow against them, the day 37 in Villa Park with 59 points, and trying to test the match, how we are with them, is really something amazing. For me, it's a fantastic match tomorrow. I am very, very motivated, excited. I am looking forward to test us tomorrow, to test us as a team, individual as well, and in Villa Park to try to create a great atmosphere. And of course, the supporters must be with us tomorrow, and should be a very good day, playing one match, 90 minutes against Liverpool.
They are the thoughts of Unai Emery there on what has been a relatively decent league campaign for Aston Villa, although less so in recent weeks. We can show you their last 10 results in the Premier League, and they obviously had a really impressive period over the winter, an 8-game winning run then, saw them being included in conversations about the title, Gary, but stuttered recently, as you can see there, just the 2 wins in the last 10 games, but maybe have been distracted by that progress in Europe.
Yeah, got off to a really bad start. I didn't think they won in like the first 5 games or something like that, and then obviously had that little run, and it just shows you, like, if you have that little run, I think it was 8 games or something like that, picked up a lot of wins, but then recently, well, I think there's a drop off basically because you're battling with like your European fixtures, and like you got to like combine them with like league, and Aston Villa are not like serial campaigners in in that respect, so maybe they found it a little bit hard, as they rightly say, like a lot of these players have played a lot of games, a lot of minutes, and maybe a little bit of fatigue has crept in as well. but they're still a decent outfit. They've held their position in that top 4 all the way through, like their bad spell. So Liverpool's still got a bit to do. But you know, listen, with Liverpool, we should be going into this game worried, like thinking like Aston Villa are worried about what we can achieve and what we can do, as opposed to worrying about Aston Villa, I think.
They are capable of turning on a performance, though. If you look at that second leg against Nottingham Forest in the Europa League, Tash, of course, lost the first leg 1-0, but 4-0 in the second, and they really were able to turn it on that night, and that is the kind of Aston Villa performance Liverpool have got to be wary of tonight. Yeah,
absolutely. I think a strong start is absolutely key. You know, we have to start strong, and when you look at Villa's team, they've got players all over the pitch that can hurt you. You know, they've got a really strong spine. I spoke about, you know, the goal scorer in Ollie Watkins, who loves to play against Liverpool, by the way. I think his stats are ridiculous. I think he scored 5 in his last 5 at home against Liverpool. And I think as a player and as a team, you know, you have that in your head, you know, who are the teams you enjoy playing against, so he'll be really up for this, you know. And I think they've missed Kamara. I think that's been a big loss for them, but I think like I said, I reiterate, it's going to be a tough game, but I do believe that, you know, we have to be tighter defensively. I think more than anything, we have to have a bit more of a fight. I think if I'm being ultra critical, we just haven't had enough of that this year. You know, the willingness to kind of play dirty, fight, you know, play ugly. I want to see that again. You know we can play good football and attractive football, but, you know, you have to earn the right to play the game. So they're going to have to do that at first 5-10 minutes.
To speak about some of their danger men, if you like, the lads spoke about Morgan Rogers. Let's speak about Ollie Watkins. Tash just touched on him there. Obviously, you said his good record against Liverpool, but his stats recently involved in 12 goals in his last 13 in all comps. Before that, he only had 9 involvements in his first 39 this season, which has led to him falling out of favour with England, Gary, but he will still be harbouring hopes of going to the World Cup, and I guess sees every game as an opportunity to give Thomas Tuchel some food for thought.
Yeah, I think when you look at the England setup, I think you've got Harry Kane, he's like nailed on, and then who else goes with along with Harry Kane? And you have to say that it's not been Ollie Watkins' best season. I think there was like a rumour about him actually leaving the football club at one time. So it's not been like a purple patch for him. I think he had his purple patch maybe last season or like the season before that. But he's still a threat. He's one of these players that, like, from a defender's point of view, you hate because he wants to get in behind you. He wants to run in behind you all the time. And when you're a defender, that's the last thing you want. Trust me, like somebody on your somebody on your shoulder running in behind you. It's all right if they're going short and like showing for it all the time. I'll have that all day, but when they're running behind you, and plus the fact he's a bit of a menace as well, you'll put yourself about. But it's how, for me at Villa, it's all about how they can play around Ollie Watkins as well. Can they get players up and like support him, give him like the support that he needs? Because sometimes when I watch games with Villa, he's been a little bit isolated at times, and I don't think he's that good when he's isolated. I think he needs people alongside him. So vitally important that they get Morgan Rogers up alongside him. I'm a bit worried. Lindelof in the middle of the park, I'm not 100% sure that's the balance that they need. Tielemans is a good ball player, got a good goal scoring record against Liverpool as well. But in saying that, I don't think he's one of these players that will get into the box too many times to get up and support. I think that's down to John McGinn. I mean, big expectations for him to obviously take Scotland into the
I knew you might mention that. Let's speak about John McGinn because, as you say, I mean, he will be looking forward to the World Cup this summer. He counts Andy Robertson, of course, as one of his closest friends in football, but rivals on the pitch tonight. I think, though, the two of them, Tash, have got quite similar qualities in terms of their tenacity, intensity, and they're just relentless, aren't they, with their energy?
Yeah, I think McGinn is a player that you want in your team. You talk about those players. He doesn't just have the quality on the ball with his deliveries and actually, scoring goals as well. But I spoke about and what Liverpool have to do tonight, that hard work. He is, the most hard-working player on the pitch. He doesn't stop. He leads by example, and I think you need to have those leaders that have been there, done it. And he certainly is that for Aston Villa.
Aston Villa have won 59% of games that John McGinn starts.
No,
it drops to 25% when he doesn't. So I think it's not, as Tash saying, it's not just about the play and what he does on the field, but it's leadership qualities as well in the dressing room, Gary.
Well, that stat says it all, doesn't it? Like, I think they struggled when he wasn't in the side. He's a charismatic kind of fella, isn't he? Like, and he brings out the best in other people. Sometimes it's not all about like yourself being the best player on the pitch. It's how you can like bring out the best in your teammates. And I think he's one of these players. I don't think he's a world beater, John McGinn. You know, you look at the way he plays the game. It's nothing like intricate about it, nothing magical about it, but it's effective. And sometimes I had one criticism about Liverpool. We play a little bit. We're a little bit too intricate. We're a little bit too five-a-side, like kind of like keep the ball and don't have that penetration that we should maybe have like a little bit more in the final third of the pitch. But like McGinn's one of these players what like shows industry and effort and like desire to like get the job done. And when you've got a player in like your side like that, it's a big plus.
He's full of heart, isn't he? You mentioned Lindelof. Let's speak about him because left Manchester United after an 8-year stint back in September as a free agent, and then he gets this move to Villa, which has kind of revitalised his career. Tash.
Yeah, and also in a role that maybe we're not used to seeing him playing. You know, he's normally a centre half, and he's been playing in more of a holding mid role with the two of them, and you know he's done okay in there. You know, and again, I think he knows his limitations. You know what you're going to get from him. I think if anything, it gives them that extra protection, maybe with that kind of role, knowing that he is like a centre half. So I think it's really interesting. I'm going to see. You know, I'm interested to watch the game tonight as well to kind of see how he plays that role. But you know, credit to him to get that move to Villa, a top team, and to be getting, you know, a start and potentially playing in a Europa final as well.
I think what it does do for Villa, it gives maybe like the two fullbacks the licence to maybe play a little bit higher up the pitch because like they can drop more or less into a back three as opposed to just having like the two centre backs there. So maybe like, you know, with Cash down the right hand side, Dean down the left hand side, you maybe could see them playing a little bit higher up the pitch.
He'd love to bomb on.
We obviously saw Chelsea last week, who have a very young average age. Villa are kind of the opposite, average age of 28.2. The Premier League average is 26.5. So it's the second oldest squad, just behind Fulham. But with that maturity, obviously comes experience as well, which you need.
Yeah, I'm a big one on that, and I think it's a balance. I think in the modern game now, managers seem to want to have the younger players, but talking from experience, you know, I think that when you've got those players that have been there and done it consistently year on year, and you look at some of the top players in the world that are still performing at that kind of level, I think that you have to have those leaders in the changing room. I think it's so vital, and then for them as well to then be able to educate the young players coming through. So I'm all for absolutely finding that next talent, but you know, for me, I'd much prefer to have more experienced players that have been there and, you know, kind of lead the way. And Aston Villa have got a really nice balance of that. Absolutely, in years to come, maybe they're going to have to bring younger players through. But I think they've got a good balance so far.
Yeah, you need that blend, don't you? Right. Social media viewers will be leaving us very shortly, but our build-up continues here on LFC TV and All Red Video. Head to liverpoolfc.com/watch for details right now of how to subscribe if you want to stay with us here on Matchday Live. There is plenty more to come pre-match. We will hear from Arne Slot, and Curtis Jones is on the way too very shortly. We'll hand over to Steve Hunter and Ray Houghton, who will guide you through all the action with our live audio commentary service. Then come full-time at Villa Park, Ray will join Tash here in the studio to assess the game. Our post-match show will be available to listen to in the reaction later on. That is the club's official podcast. You can watch the game in full on LFC TV from 6 o'clock on Sunday evening. And Neil Miller will have all the key moments from today's game on the Premier League review show. That is at 6 o'clock on Monday evening.
It's a night where you feel Liverpool need not just a win, but a performance as well. The run of late, by their standards, hasn't been good. It may just put a little extra pressure on the returning Reds for the game against an in-form Aston Villa side tonight. And Aston Villa have hit the post early. Here's Sobos line. Gakpo's header. Cash. Time. Space! Well, that's a poor ball, Salah! Yes! 250 Liverpool goals for Mohamed Salah. Here is Ryan Gravenberg. It's only enough for Gravenberg! That's the goal they wanted.
Celebration from Ryan Gravenberg in that 2-0 at Anfield back in November. He is in